Okay, what's up, guys? So I have completed the 3 day fast, and I feel amazing. I feel awesome. The I think the toughest part was what was the toughest part? I think it was the end of the third day of day three, and I was really hungry, and just being able to shut the brain off and go to sleep because it does give you a lot of energy was indeed the hardest part. And then the next morning, I wanted to ease into eating. I didn't want to eat right away. Had some broth, some coffee with MCT oil, lots of fluids, and I wanted to wait until after two or three to eat. That was really hard. And then I had then it was time to eat, and I started with fish. So just putting a bow on the fast. Really enjoyed it. I would do it again. I'll probably do it again in a few weeks. I'm thinking about going for 7 days. But just to report back, I think the pains in my shoulder and I've been working on my shoulder. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of the inflammation and pain has just would not go away, and I definitely see an improvement there. Absolutely see an improvement in my the side of my knee. I had a pain there, and and in general, I just feel loose, energetic. I'm ready to go in the morning. Normally, I get up at 5 and I'm groggy and I mill about, unless I have something to do right away. And now I kind of wake up and I'm ready to go. So far so good. Maybe it's just the beginning, and maybe I don't know, but I feel great about it. So let's cut that little last piece out. But anyway, so far so good, and I'm back to eating. And I went right into eating the carnivore diet. So I want to talk about this real quick. There's a lot of controversy around the carnivore diet, and a lot of people don't believe it. A lot of people swear by it. I'm a big believer that everything isn't for everybody. Just because it works for me doesn't mean it needs to work for you, and so on and so forth. Our bodies are different. I think some people respond better to being a vegan. Some people respond better to being octo-vegan. I think I heard that term, something like that. Long story short, maybe it's not for everybody, but I had an experience not too long ago, about 8 months ago, that made me reconsider whether I should try this diet. So there's a guy named Jordan Peterson who I heard talking about it and some of the experiences he had. And at the time, I was going through almost 6 weeks of a severe outbreak of eczema. The worst I've ever had. And I've had little outbreaks here and there my whole life, but nothing like this. And I started to get bumps and patches and so on and so forth all over my back, under my arms, my shoulders. You can still see some of the marks on my shoulders, everywhere, all down my legs. And they were just itchy. I felt like my skin was on fire almost all day. It would go away a little bit when I was sweating at the gym. I kind of get my mind off it. And as soon as I got home, the rest of the time I wasn't working out. It was absolutely terrible. So I tried all types of things. And finally I went to a gut health doctor, and she, prescribed me a few enzymes that I'm sure were good for me, but I just did not feel a difference. And I was just terrorized, to be honest. And so I, at my wit's end, had heard about this video that we're going to watch real quick. But also, my wife did some research because she was very concerned about me, and we both agreed that it might be good to try the carnivore diet, because a lot of people who had skin issues, who were at their wits' end the same way I was, had tried it and it worked for them. So I immediately started on carnivore, and for 30 days, not on purpose, but that's just about how long it took for everything to clear up, and it did. And lots of ghee. I didn't take the organs and enzymes that you may hear people talking about. Lots of tallow, and I just ate it felt very unhealthy. I'll put it that way. And I was strength training at the time a lot, twice a day. I had to get up to eating almost 5 pounds of meat a day, which I don't know if that's healthy, but that's what I was doing. Long story short, what I remember is my muscle soreness was lower than it had ever been, and I was training really hard. My recovery time was different. Maybe the soreness was just inflammation, I guess. Before the carnivore, my once again, no injuries, and I do tend to be injury prone for some reason, and I had no injuries during that time. I had a lot of energy. I do remember being concerned about my endurance. because of the nature of the sport. But I had a lot of energy, the clarity of mind. I felt like I was drinking coffee all day and so on and so forth. And then I did blood work after that 30-day experience, just because my gut health doctor had me doing quite a bit of blood work in general to just keep checking where my levels were for everything. And my blood work, some of the most important numbers were the best they've ever been. My liver function was a little elevated, which doesn't make any sense. I don't drink, and definitely wasn't drinking at the time. I have drank, but I'm not really a drinker. And so it caught my attention, and I was really worried about I started to pick up steam on my boxing sparring, I was worried that I wouldn't have enough energy in sparring. So I started to eat carbs again out of fear. And of course my skin felt better. And, I went back to that for about up until just recently. And it was fine, but I don't remember ever feeling as good as I felt when I was on the carnivore. So I'm about to, coming off this 3-day fast, go right into the carnivore diet. And there's, slight different variations of it. I think I'm going to try to work over the next 60 days to land at the version of it that I think works best for me. And I'll be sharing more information about it. But my goal here is to make a complete lifestyle change, not just 60 days, but 60 days and beyond, and completely remove sugar from my life. I'm considering maybe there can be a place for fruit, but I don't know yet. But for now, meat, maybe a little avocado, and maybe a little bit of vegetables. We'll talk more about that. But I'm going to stay as strict to a straight-up carnivore diet as I can for as long as I can, and I'm going to report back the results. All right, so let's watch this video by Jordan Peterson talking about some of his experiences and why he chose the carnivore diet, and then we'll go from there.
I was always on the border of an anaphylactic reaction, which is not pleasant. And that's hypersympathetic activation, no parasympathetic.
And by the way, I've had allergies to my entire life, like pet dander, hay fever. I'm allergic to wheat, so allulose, which is in wheat. And long story short, I've just been terrified with allergies my entire life. So I'm wondering if also that's why I felt so dramatically different, because my body's not attacking itself, of course, at all times when I'm on carnivore.
Sympathetic activation. I couldn't relax at all.
That's an immunological response.
Allergic response, yeah. So anyways, that was what seemed, now this, I don't like to talk about this much because it's so bloody radical, and I don't like to propagate it, but this diet seems to have stopped all of that. I don't have psoriasis. All of the patches have gone.
Yeah.
My gum disease, which is incurable, had multiple surgeries to deal with it, is completely gone. Took 3 years. My right eye, which was quite cloudy, is cleared up completely. What else has changed? Well, I lost 50 pounds, and instantly, and kept it off.
Should mention that I too am not a deep investigator of nutritional science. I have my skepticism towards the degree to which it is currently a science, because like a lot of complex systems, it's full of mystery. And full of profiteers, the people that profit of different kinds of diets. But I should say, for me personally, it does seem that I feel by far the best when I eat only meat. It's very interesting, and I discovered that a long time ago. First of all,
how do you discover it?
The discovery went like this. I started listening to ultra marathon runners about 15 years ago, and they started talking about fat adapted running. So I first discovered that I don't have to run super fast to enjoy running. And in fact, I really enjoy running at a slower pace. So that was.
It's interesting that he talked about that, and I don't know if this video will get into it, but I've also been told one of the core benefits of the carnivore diet is, and one of the things that you'll have to do if you do it is you got to make sure you're getting enough fat. It becomes your key core energy, your number one energy source in terms of what you're eating, your body converting into energy. And there's a lot of studies and reports that people are starting to take serious about how putting your body into the mode where it's using fat as the energy source is one of the best things you can do.
Like step one is like, oh, okay, if I maintain something called the MAF rule, which is a pretty low heart rate, if I maintain that, you can actually get pretty fast while maintaining a pretty slow average speed in general. Anyway, they fuel themselves on low carb diets. So I got into that. On top of that, they also fast often.
Remember that he said ultra marathoners, the ones he was talking about, fuel themselves on a low carb diet, and then he's saying that they fast a lot.
So I discovered how incredible my mind feels when fasted. People call it intermittent fasting, but
Well, that's an optimization of death, because when you fast, your body, logically and obviously, if you think about it biologically, is, well, what does your body scavenge first? Well, damaged tissue. So I know the literature on fasting to some degree, and it's very compelling literature. If you starve dogs down, I think it's 20% below, rats too, below their optimal body weight, they live 30% longer.
Yeah.
That's a lot, 30%. It's like 30%. Yeah, 30%.
Wow. Well, there is aspect to a lot of these things that make me nervous, because I always feel like there's no free lunch, that I'm going to pay for it somehow. But there is a focus that I am able to attain when I fast, especially when I eat once a day. My mind is almost like nervously focused. It's almost like an anxiety, but a positive one, or one that I can channel into just like an excitement.
I wonder how much of that's associated with, well, imagine that signifies lack of food, which is not that hard to imagine. Well, maybe you should be a lot more alert in that situation, right? Yeah. Biologically speaking, because you're in hunting mode, let's say, not desperate, but in hunting mode. And God only knows, maybe human beings should be in hunting mode all the time.
Often, but we don't know that. So I wonder if it has a stress on the system that long-term causes the system to get to...
It doesn't look like it.
It seems, in case of fasting, not. And then on top of that, I discovered that the thing I enjoy, I just don't enjoy eating fat as much. So I love eating meat when you talk about low carb diet. So I just discovered through that process, if somewhat fatty meat, but just meat, I just feel a lot of the things that make me feel weird about food, like a little groggy or like full or just whatever. The aspects of food that I don't enjoy, they're not there with meat. And I'm still able to enjoy company. And when I eat once a day and eat meat, at least in Texas, you could still have all the merriment of you have dinner with friends. Now I don't do this. You have a very serious thing that there's health benefits that you are very serious about.
It's interesting. He talks about it. So what I'm aiming for is, I want to maintain that clarity I had when I was fasting in my day-to-day life. So I'm really curious on how I can do that. For sure, Carnivore gets me closer to that, which he talked about a lot and wanting that. So what I'm thinking, and he just talked about it, is stacking intermittent fasting, 1 day fasting per week. So 1 day of fasting per week, intermittent fasting in general every day with a maybe 4 to 6 hour eating window with Carnivore. And I'm really curious, number one, how that feels. Can I keep that up? And number two, can I keep it up as an athlete? That's the other question.
For me, I can still drink whiskey. I'll still do the things that add a little bit of spice into the thing.
Yeah.
Now, when you completely remove the spice, it does become more difficult.
Yeah.
I will say, be prepared if you do move to Carnivore and dabble in some fasting, that the energy is so great. It becomes, when you don't channel it into something, it kind of bottles up into this nervous energy, and you're anxious, but you don't know why you're anxious, and you're nervous and kind of just ready to go. And if you don't do something with it, it can almost be annoying, because when you eat, it is fun. You enjoy eating, and if you love meat, you'll learn to love it when you're starving. You don't get the same sort of arresting, sedative satisfaction from your meals. You feel them for a moment, and then that kind of passes. Versus when I have a meal with potatoes and maybe some grilled vegetables and a piece of bread, and so on and so forth. Like when I'm done, like I'm ready to go to sleep shortly thereafter. Not completely knocked out, but just, I'm satisfied. Don't feel like really doing anything else, and I'm ready to really chill and relax and watch a movie. On this diet, I'm kind of amped up and ready to go shortly thereafter eating. And so I think it's important to learn how to channel that energy, or to time your eating periods in a way that minimizes that if you don't have anything to do.
More difficult socially, and Tammy seems to only be able to eat lamb, although she might be able to eat non-aged beef, and that makes traveling complicated too, right? Because, well, for obvious reasons, it's like, really, that's all you can eat? Yeah, well, c'est la vie, and maybe that's a form of craziness, but.
So that's a great video to watch. Check out Jordan Peterson, because in addition to being a very smart guy, I tend to agree with 85 to 90% of what he says, and I'm just throwing a rough estimate out there because I kind of feel like I agree with everything he says, but I'm sure I haven't heard everything or read everything. But he's a great resource. But then also on this topic, carnivore diet, he talks a lot about it on his interviews and podcasts, etc. And a great person to follow if you just want anecdotal, like what's been his experience. All right, so guys, I'm moving in from my fast, transitioning from my fast to carnivore. Once I get 7 days of carnivore under my belt and I feel, ready to rock and that I can train and so on and so forth, I'm going to institute an intermittent fasting routine, which we'll talk about. But for now, I want to do one more video on the carnivore diet so that you understand how to do it properly, and that we kind of acknowledge some of the frequently asked questions, and we'll go from there. Take care.